Hi, good afternoon. Nice that you're with so much to join us on this webinar. A webinar all over about successful partnership between life science and health companies. It's an organization of moveUP Labs and it got the support of IQVIA. So the next 90 minutes, and when I say 90 minutes, it will be 90 minutes. We keep it all within our timing. So the next 90 minutes, we're going to discuss a lot of practical stuff, some practical examples of how we can integrate new technologies in healthcare. We're going to discuss some examples, and when I say examples, well, that will be the major time of what we'll discuss. We give some examples of projects made in Belgium, homemade programs. We talk about collaborators. They give us the strengths. They tell us what went wrong, what we can learn about it. Can they reimburse it? So they give us lots of practical information about this Belgium-made project. Of course, when we talk about new technologies, we talk about data. It's the new gold. We got an expert here. He tells us how to get them, what to do with it, what are the problems. And of course, and that's the third focus of this afternoon, we're going to talk about funding. How do you fund such programs? Mostly it are apps, and you probably know it's not that easy. And the most important question is often, can we get reimbursement? Well, the answer within this 90 minutes, so stay tuned. We give a clear answer if it's possible to get reimbursement in Belgium. And we end on the keys to success. And the keys of success is the key of success. It's only one word. It's all about collaboration. And we got an expert here who gives us some examples of how you can work together and get refunding and good funding. So when I say we, it's not me, myself, and I. No, we got 4, 5 specialists who will join us. Let me introduce them to you. First of all, we go to my left hand. We got Dr. Robrecht Keulemans. He's the head of surgery doctor at Heilig Hart in Mol. You and your colleagues started a project. What is this project? What are you going to tell us?
As part of my work at the hospital, it's obesity and obesity surgery as well. And within that project, we've started up with a new step forward to make long-term follow-up possible. And that's why we came across moveUP, and we're able to, and we're very proud of that. And we're able to be part of the process of building the bariatric program within moveUP.
You'll tell us all about the in and outs on how to make such a program. When we talk about these programs, we talk about data, and that's why we got Charles-Éric Winandy. He's the co-founder of moveUP Labs, and he's also, let me say a little bit, let's be honest, you're the data guy, the data engineer of moveUP Labs. What are you going to tell us?
Yes, thanks. Pleasure to be here. So indeed, I'm responsible at moveUP for data and finance, and I will explain how we can extract data and insight from all those projects, and then of course how to valorize those data and what we can get out of it from a funding point of view.
Yeah, looking forward to that. We got one person who really wanted to be here. He did everything to change his planning, but honestly it was impossible to get him here in the studio. So no worries. Some days ago we went to visit him at home, and he introduces himself. It's Koen Rijmakers. Here's an introduction of Koen.
Koen Rijmakers, Value Solution Manager for Amgen, meaning we look for solutions of which patients can benefit in specific therapeutic areas that we work in, but not necessarily linked to our products. This is also how we collaborate with moveUP in the education and rehabilitation of hematology patients after stem cell transplants.
So Koen will give us some examples, some learnings on what he and his colleagues did in Amgen. So 90 minutes, what we're going to do will be as interactive as possible. We're going to ask you to do some polling, to make some word clouds. So keep your smartphone by the hand. You'll need it within some minutes. As said, we got some experts here in the studio, and maybe you saw someone on the right hand of me. Well, let me introduce him to you. It's Bob Moens. Bob is one of the early believers in new health technologies and integrating new technologies in healthcare. At this very moment, he's the director of partnerships of moveUP Labs. First question for you, Bob. moveUP Labs, what is it exactly?
Yes, hello, Jan. moveUP Labs, in fact, started from moveUP, and most people will know us from our programs in orthopedic and bariatric surgery. But more and more we got questions, can you make a specific customized program in orthopedic and bariatric programs, but also in totally different therapeutical areas? And indeed, we first listened to the needs, and for some programs we start building it together with these partners. And after a few years, we guess, okay, we are now becoming an expert in this field, so let's make it now a proactive program. In moveUP Labs, we focus on two elements, the programs for hospitals and care providers, and then the partnerships with life science companies.
What are you going to? You're a little bit the fil rouge between all the different programs that we're going to present. What are we going to do this afternoon? What are you going to present this afternoon?
But in fact, the goal of these 90 minutes or 85 minutes left is to share experiences and have an open conversation about indeed what we're doing. And give some examples, because that's what most people do. Okay, but what is it now? Digital health, and how it's being implemented. So the various speakers will give some example, share experiences about what went well, and what will they do different next time.
Share experience. That's all about what we're going to do this day. Share experience with Switzerland. We do get a second time. We try to get Jan Agaralov from Argenix. Jan, are you there?
Hi, Jan. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
It's good to see you all.
Hi. Let me introduce you to this. There you are on screen. Nice. We know you're a very, 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 very busy guy. We know that you were busy just around 3:30 this afternoon. That's why you came in a little bit later. But no worries. We're so glad that you joined us over here. Argenix has made a program. Within some minutes, you're going to present it more extensively. What are you going to talk about? What is your main message that you want to bring to us, Jan?
I think the main message, and that's what I wanted really to highlight in this discussion, is really about, concrete example of the power, of the digital solutions like, moveUP team is developing, for example, which can clearly solve, very concrete unmet need, medical unmet need. That's, I think, really the focus and probably the key message which I wanted maybe to deliver and also to discuss with your colleagues.
Great, looking forward to your presentation. But before we do that, we go back to Bob. You got already a slide over there ready.
So it's about I will ask some questions to the audience to get an understanding of the people. So there is a QR code that you can use, or maybe Jan, you can introduce that?
Yeah. We said we'll try to make as interactive as possible. Time to take your smartphone, and at this very moment on the screen, you see a QR code. Just take your smartphone, make the QR code, and you'll see a question coming up. So now you see that QR code. We give you some seconds the time to get it. And let's go to the first question. We know that you're with a lot to join us over here, and we see already one answer coming in. What is your role in all the project that you are doing? Are you doing already a project? Well, let's take some time to see what you are doing. We see sales marketing, we see quality, we see value-based healthcare. Bob, is this the audience that you dreamed of?
Indeed, we're just starting on this poll, but in fact, all people are most welcome to this webinar. I expect indeed quite some both data, quality regulatory, as well as business-related people, and indeed some consulting folks also registered.
Yes.
So
very diverse public.
Exactly.
That's nice. You said, well, it's all about changing thought, and that's what we're going to do. Let's go to a second question. So, can you describe in one word, please, what kind of digital project are you involved in, or would you like to be involved in? So, let's see what you are doing in innovation. Someone says we're trying to make a word cloud, and with only one word, innovation, that's not enough. So bring on some words, please. We see a lot. Applications are coming up. Digital apps. So the word cloud is building up, and building up. What did you have in mind of people that you invited?
I expect quite some patient-related topics. In fact, like the patient engagement. I see patient-centric coming up, patient center.
Yeah. Digital is the magic word.
Is the magic word. Yeah.
Okay, let's still wait some seconds and we see the digital growing and growing. That's nice to see. So let's go to a last question, a multiple choice question. Here's a question for you. What is the phase on which your program is at this moment? Is it solution building, requirement gathering, validation, fine-tuning, scaling? So someone is, or some people are already scaling in, but the majority at this very moment, and this is moving and moving up, is still in the building position, in the really starting phase. Something that you know quite well, I guess, Bob.
Yeah, indeed, the solution building is one, and the question is the validation part. Jan will talk about that. But when you call, at which moment do you call it finished, let's say, because these projects in fact never finish. Okay. They continue to go, but indeed there are validation steps to make sure when to put products in the market.
Yeah, you said Jan will talk within some minutes about validation. None of the people that are following this webinar.
Maybe they went immediately from building to scaling. That is super. Yeah.
Okay, but we see the majority is in the startup of a project. So we said the majority of this of our meeting webinar will focus on some concrete projects, and there are some examples. You have some examples of project. Majorly, you have 4 different types of project. Bob?
Exactly.
Please introduce them to us.
Yes, I'll take the. So there are four types of projects. In fact, maybe just to start, because digital health is a broad area, and the most projects that we do are a combination of a patient application combined with or not combined with an activity tracker, as well as a monitoring dashboard which is used by healthcare practitioners. And then there is that interaction that indeed helps to solve the problem that we talk about. And there are 4 kinds of projects. There is the project that mainly support the patient and the healthcare practitioner. And Jan will give an example about that one. Then there's another category where it's more about the patient awareness and engaging the patient. Then there is that where it all started with the patient monitoring and the treatment parts. And then with all the data is being collected, that can also be used to collect data and demonstrate outcomes for specific purposes. And some projects really start with that aim.
Mm-hmm. So let's start with the first type. It's a patient healthcare professional support, and Argenix made such a program. That's why we go to Switzerland. And by the way, we asked to all the presenters over here, don't make too much slides. And someone who understood that very well was Jan, because he only have 2 slides, indeed, 2 slides. And that's the way we like it. Jan, are you hearing us?
Yes, I can hear.
So present to us your 2 slides.
Yes, maybe I can just start by introducing myself quickly, and apologies I was a few late. My name is Jana Galarov. I'm a director of strategy and the business operation here at the European organization of Argenix. So I'm calling you from Switzerland, even so as you may know, Argenix is an emerging biotech company which is originally is from Belgium, from Ghent. So speaking about today's topic, and that's really what I wanted to highlight today, is that as someone who haven't worked previously in the field of digital health and development of such solution, I got a little bit of a feeling when I started it and started to learn about the field, is that there is a little bit of element of we have a hammer and we are looking for a nail, right? We have a solution and we are trying to find a problem, and that may not again, that's maybe my personal experience, but that may not really work well, in 100% of the cases when we see actually solution developed, right? And what I wanted to talk to you today is really about, how we started, this work and the collaboration with moveUP team is that actually by identifying the unmet need, right? So there was no digital, team here at Argenix, there was no interest whatsoever into develop the app for developing of the sake of app. We really came up, with this idea because we were looking at the unmet medical need which exists in one of the conditions of interest for Argenix, which is myasthenia gravis. It's a chronic autoimmune neurological condition, which have very impactful effect on the patient's life. And what happens in clinical practice is that patients would normally only have appointments with their physicians only, let's say 1 or 2 times per year, right? And then on the other hand, the disease, the myasthenia gravis has fluctuating nature, right? Meaning that, the symptoms can change from one day to another day, from 1 week to another week, right? So these changes may stay unnoticed between the, visits and appointments with the treating neurologist. So that's really the unmet need which we, identified. And, we thought how we can solve it, right? And, the idea which we had is that why don't we actually develop a simple, application, a digital tool, which would allow patients, to essentially self-assess their symptoms while they, wait for another appointment, between appointments, and they can do it easily themselves at home. And that's, really, the unmet need, which we identified. And we worked, and we are working with moveUP team, collaborating with them, with the aim to develop, a simple app which would allow us to, patient to self-assess, his condition, his symptoms, with the use of, well-developed and well-established existing and well-used patient-reported outcome measure, which is called MG-ADL, activity scale of daily living in myasthenia gravis. And that's the app, which allows patients to track their symptoms, record these symptoms, right? And also generate a very simple reports which patient can share with the treating neurologist, by sending in by email, for example. And that's really, where we are in terms of, of designing such solution and development of such solution for now.
Great. We'll see you back in some minutes. Bob, your reaction?
Yes. So then that's going fast. Let's do another.
We'll change the slides. Just the new slide is coming up, Bob. There we are.
So the next kind of projects is more about the awareness and engagement creation for patients. And then there are 2 specific examples I just would like to highlight. One of them is related to thrombosis. Thrombosis is what you want to prevent after surgery mainly. And so prevent, but if it would occur, then it's important to act as soon as possible on it. And that was the problem that was indicated. And together with the company, we built that solution and provided it to patients to make sure that they are becoming aware of that risk, do the preventive actions like exercises, but also monitor themselves and indicate which symptoms they are. And if symptoms would occur, they get a message on what they need to do on that.
Who promoted that app?
It is a combination with another company that we work with.
Yeah, it's GPs, specialists, cardiologists?
It's mainly surgeons, because somebody needs to provide the access to the patient. So it's the surgeons and the surgeons team that give the access to the patients, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There are some slides about this, I don't know.
Yes, you can go to that.
Okay. So,
oops.
Then we go back to that one.
There
That's
we
indeed
are.
The thrombosis, and it shows a bit some elements of the application where indeed it's also using medication and a video of how to use it. Another example of the awareness creation is for specific genetic rare disease. So sometimes when this disease is identified, it's important to identify who else in the family has that disease. So we developed some kind of cascade screening to see, okay, the parents, the children, the brothers, the sisters, do they also suffer this genetic disease? And we did it in a way that the index patient, which is the patient with the disease, can easily inform their members, the family members, with some information about, okay, I'm having this disease, so it's maybe better that you also go to your GP for also being checked, and if then that GP does some kind of blood testing or genetic testing, that's also that cascade can go into a test whether positive or negative. When positive, it also becomes an index patient, and the story continues to identify as many patients as possible and then treat them as well.
Do I get it right? It's the patient himself, herself, who invites someone
It is really a patient application, so the moment it is initiated and then it starts rolling itself. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that's another example of kind of projects. The third one is the patient monitoring and the treatment project, where I would like to start with introducing what we call the closed loop. So in fact, the patient is using an application, is using a tracker, and all the data that he's entering is being compiled in nice dashboards and reports. But you can imagine if the patient does not get any type of support for doing this, the data compliance will be very limited. So that's why we built in the intelligence around it, where there's automated messaging to these patients, information on the right moment to these patients, the reminders, alerts, the personal goals are even added with activity targets, exercises, feedback modes. So the more you interact with that patient, the more he will feel a part of the team, the more information he will give. Can also go further even and have some kind of coordinator looking at the data and interacting with that patient immediately, and even escalate that to another care provider in the care team. And this way the patient is really supported, and with that kind of approach we see the best outcomes and the best satisfaction for all stakeholders.
Yeah. First question is coming in, Bob, and it's the briefest question ever asked.
Okay.
One word: artificial intelligence. I guess he or she means, is this a bot or is it are persons behind this screen?
In fact, it's a combination of the automation which is being built in the system, and it's mainly, okay, if this answer comes in, then it should react in that way, or it's the coordinator who gives the information. So, but more and more, the more data we have, and Charles will talk about in a minute, the more and more data we have, the more we can automate the messages. But of course, we are a medical device, so we need to align with the specific rules on that.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, you see, if you got a question, right down below your screen, there's some space where you can type your question, and after some seconds, we get your question, and they go right to Bob or to the other collaborators here in the studio. I guess it's time to go to Mol, and Mol, that's where Heilig Hart is, and there also works Professor Robrechts. Doctor, tell us all about your app.
So I'd like to go to the bariatric tool, what Bob already told us about. Maybe a little bit context-wise, as an obesity team, we're working with a multidisciplinary approach for 20 years now, and we felt the need for a higher level of follow-up that is more patient-centered. Patient needs to be at the central part and need to be able to interact as much as possible, and being able to perform this follow-up for a very long term, because if we need those patients to change their lifestyle habits, we need to follow them for a very long time, and that is not easy. So doing part of this follow-up remotely is an enormous influence for those patients. So if you look at the slides, I will go through the project that is working now at the hospital. First of all, the first part for those patients is the screening. We start off with an intake. We talk to the patients, and as soon as we together decide to go further, we'll first of all need to know more about the patient, and we'll do a screening with lots of questions, obviously consultations with cardiologist, endocrinologist, psychologist, dietitian, etc. But as well a lot of questionnaires, and those questionnaires most of them are validated. It's a lot of work into it, and using the application we can provide those patients very easily with those questions, and answering those questions it's much more easy using this type of application. Once this screening is done, we'll gather all the information and we'll do a multidisciplinary team approach where we give the patient and together with the patient we'll try to have the best possible treatment for the short and the long term. And whenever there is obesity surgery as a part of that treatment, they have to go through the certain next steps that are listed here. First of all, we have the preparation phase. During that phase, they will get again a lot of information. As Bob already told, the information is given at a certain time, because when we start off giving patient information of the whole project and the whole strategy, they lose a lot of information because it's too much on one time. So it's all in small bits. And during the preparation, they will adjust already their eating habits. They will get a lot of information on vitamins, on protein diet, and that's what they'll start with about 2 weeks before surgery. They'll start with a protein diet, and again, we can use the application to make sure the patients do that properly. Then, obviously, we have a perioperative phase. In the hospital itself, patient is already fully informed using the information we give them during the outpatient clinic, but those informative issues are made stronger when you during the follow-up and during these certain steps you again and again give information at the right time. After the operation, a very important part is giving a lot of questions and asking a lot of questions. This means patients get informed but get a lot of possibilities to give themselves answers to simple questions, and most of them are healthcare indicators. Do you feel good? Are you nauseous? Do you have pain, etc.? Answering those questions, for every answer, we, with this application, are provided with a score system. And while patients answer their questions, these scoring systems will give us a lot of information during the consultation when we look at it in a dashboard. I will give you further information later on. But more strongly, whenever those scoring systems are giving us a message, things do not go very well, we have to interact earlier, then we can do so, because the system will provide us with a message automatically, as Bob already told us, and we can use the chat function in the application to go in contact with the patient. Further on, we have this dashboard, as I told you. We can follow up the patients, pick out one patient and look how things go. And obviously, when there is a notice and a flag that we have to check for things, then the possibility is very easy to check this dashboard. As already been told, the escalation phase is, I think, quite unique for us as surgeons. What happens is that during the phase, the patient is at home and is guided, and the follow-up is done through this application. We eventually will have notice of small things that go wrong, and we can very easily interact with the patient to guide them. And in our opinion, this is a true way how a patient himself can interact by asking the team, I need care now, because that's what he needs now, but not because his follow-up outpatient clinic will be within 3 weeks' time. So he can choose, or he or she can choose herself or himself. Gathering data means, of course, that we need to get that data on the right place, and therefore there is a connection necessary between the application and the electronic file of the patient, so that there is already a connection, which is very important. And also for the patient to make sure to show him or her you're doing well, we have to give the patient as well a report with a very simple and colorful drawings to say, well, this is going right, this is going wrong, here we have to adjust and we have to deal with it. Looking at the impact on the patients, I believe we have an impact on 3 different levels, meaning remote follow-up is a very important one. It becomes manageable for patients to have a very long follow-up because part of the follow-up is remote. I'll go back. Okay. Secondly, we have patient and family-centered care. So the patient is in the center and he or she will have the right information at the right time, chosen by the patient. And 3, we have integrated healthcare. And that's, in our opinion, a true future for healthcare because all possible healthcare providers can join this application. Not only there is the surgeon, not only there is a general practitioner or the dietitian or the psychologist, but we have the cardiologist, we have the whole team on all possible levels of healthcare providers, and that together brings us to integrated healthcare, and that's the future, I think.
Yeah. You say we get in contact with the patient. Do I understand that in Mol there's someone, a nurse, interacting with them?
In the program, we have chosen that whenever there is a message generated by the application, the dietitian will be the first to see it, because most of the interaction at that time will be food related. And then the dietitian will give some explanation. But in case he or she said, well, this is truly medical, we on our side will get a message on our telephone, our iPhone, and just say, oh, just have a look at that patient. So it can go very, very quick. And the time the patient puts in a message, it can take a couple of hours to a couple of days to have already a treatment available, interaction available for the patient, while otherwise it would take 3 weeks or so until the next consultation.
A bold question. What's the workload for you? You have lots of time, I guess. So how much time does it take?
The main issue about that is information. The first thing is to inform. If patients are very well informed, the chances that they have to call you or send you a lot of messages, I don't understand, those things shouldn't happen. So that's a large part. In case it does, it's mainly related to adjustments for foods. So that means the dietitians go through all the files anyway. And we have adjusted, as comes funding is very important, we have adjusted their time. So we make sure that they have enough time to go through all the files proactively and see what's going on, how are things going. So eventually for the surgeon itself, there's a lot of filtering already going on. There's a lot of information already on the website. There's already a lot of information given. So eventually what we need to do as an interaction is not so much.
Okay, nice to hear. You talked about funding that's coming up, but first we go to Bob, because a lot of these programs are orthopedically oriented.
I think there's first another, let's say, testimonial of a surgeon using a similar application. So maybe it's good to go to that one first.
Let's listen to that testimonial. It's a video coming up.
For our patients, the main thing about the app is that we can follow them during the day. If there is any little question, we can see how it goes with them. Not only for medical complaints, but also for normal things like food intake, movement. Some of the questions can be answered automatically, but of course we always check them and give them personal advice. So together with the University of Ghent, we are having a study on behavioral changes, on enhancing compliance with our patients, and we will present all data later this year at the World Congress of Obesity Surgery in Naples.
Yeah. Some nice comments, Bob.
Yeah, indeed. We're talking here because bariatric is an acute procedure, but in fact it is a patient with obesity and it's not solved within a few weeks. So we need to go for compliance on the longer run. So if we collect the data and we check how adherence, what's the adherence of patient to this, to both the medical scoring as well as the frequent question that we ask, and the exercises, you see that even for programs where there is little interaction like this one, the scoring is always above 50 and up to 60 and 70%. But if you look at it in time, you see it's reduced. It reduces every, let's say, every few months it goes down. So that's why, as Dr. De Berg was indicating, that we started a collaboration with the University of Ghent to build a behavioral change program, where indeed the patient can indicate his own goals to be combined with the goals of the healthcare provider, to make sure that he stays on board for the whole trajectory and not just for a better surgery. And then the specific approach being used for that is the HAPA model, and that is now being integrated in the application and is being tested now in a pilot.
The idea is getting the compliance higher.
Exactly, and on the longer run as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. And indeed, as you mentioned, now that is the program we have in abdominal surgery, but it started in orthopedic surgery, where we have the similar project. I will not go through this, but we give the word to Dr. Gijselings from UZ Leuven.
Yeah, we got the testimonial, even made in it's dubbed in American language. I guess you are looking also to the States. Let's listen to that testimonial.
Research has shown that the better patients are prepared for surgery, the faster they recover, and the more satisfied they are afterward. If you want to do the preparation well, it obviously takes a lot of time. That's why we started using moveUP in 2020. And by now, we have completely adapted the platform to our way of working.
Wij zien eigenlijk al onze patiënten terug 6 weken na het plaatsen van zo'n totale heupprothese.
We schedule a follow-up appointment with all our patients 6 weeks after implanting a total hip prosthesis. With the moveUP application, we can collect a significant amount of information in advance. This information includes the patient's pain level, use of painkillers, use of assistive devices, and to what extent the patient has resumed their daily activities. By doing so, we can ask targeted questions and give specific advice to the patient. Moreover, a considerable amount of data has already been collected, which enables us to compare it with that of other patients. This way, we can better predict a patient's post-surgery experience, including the occurrence of pain or resuming activities. The application also offers additional benefits, such as raising patients' awareness of their lifestyle choices and identifying risk factors like smoking and obesity. The application can encourage individuals to adopt a healthier lifestyle, become more active, quit smoking, and pay attention to their diet.
Okay, Bob, you have some remarks on this.
Yeah, you can. What's also interesting in orthopedics, we are working on this for quite some years. So we collected quite some data, and we got questions from mainly surgeons who say, okay, can the data help me to provide better insights to patients themselves? So we created the moveUP index for that, which is in fact a scoring that we give back to the surgeon, saying, okay, if you would treat that patient now with a specific procedure, the chance to success is that. And if you really do it, you can also set some milestones, like, for example, when they can remove trenches, when they can take away the pain medication. And as we all know, the satisfaction of patients is very much linked to the expectations. So setting right expectations based on data becomes a crucial element.
Do I get it right that you say we can predict the outcome?
It's a direction of a prediction. Of course, it's still averages, but it helps to set the right expectations, yes.
So
it's
based on the data the surgeon gets in, he can predict a little bit which way he'll go.
And discuss that with the patient and also include him in the process. It's not like, yes, I'm going to do surgery, or no, I'm not going to do surgery. It's including the patient in the whole decision process.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's it. Another project that, and kind of similar in the same category, is in COPD. So I will not go to the details of the project because it's a similar approach. But the problem that we're solving there is to help those patients to support them with their self-management. So it's also a chronic disease, and so we want to create them the awareness and the treatment, but that also become very much aware of their own disease and know what to deal with at what moment in time.
Okay.
Yeah. So indeed, it's the different phases that we go to with the end that in the third phase that they go for self-management, and we see very good results of that. We have the first patient now, I think, a little bit more than 1 year in the program, and even there's no follow-up anymore. A lot of them still adhere to the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Let's go to Koen Rijmakers. That's the guy who really wanted to be here. He works for Amgen, and he'll present his project, the project of Amgen that was launched some months ago. Let's go to Kesselo in Leuven.
So we started in 2019 when, during an advisory board with different specialists in the field of multiple myeloma, we saw that there was a gap in the rehabilitation of patients after stem cell transplant. So during stem cell transplant, patients are in isolation for a long time, and afterwards they are somehow considered cured at that moment, but still need a physical revalidation. Nowadays, they have that possibility in the hospital or in rehabilitation centers linked to the hospital. But after this long isolation, a lot of patients don't really feel like coming to the hospital multiple times a week. So ideally, they would do the rehabilitation at their home or a local physiotherapist. But then they don't have the knowledge of multiple myeloma because it's relatively rare. So we were looking for an in-between solution, and talking to the physiotherapist, Professor Adriaanse in UZ Brussel, we came up with the idea of looking into an application that could follow the patients from a distance. We knew of the existence of moveUP, and this brought us together in a collaboration, setting up a rehabilitation program for patients. We started a pilot in the UZ Brussel, but of course the idea is not to make an application that is specific for UZ Brussel, so we also organized advisory boards with different hospitals, different specialists, both in Flanders and Wallonia, to get their input on both the information part and the rehabilitation part that we developed, and took their input into account in the final solution, which we launched in December 2020.
Yeah, Bob, we got very active listeners. Someone have a interesting reaction. He said the project was launched recently, but they started the first conversations with the professor in 2019, which means it takes quite a long time. Is it often that?
It can. We go back on that on a collaboration part, but briefly, it depends on how broad you want to set the requirements in the beginning. Whether you want to start fast and learn by doing, or when you want to include a whole community and then start building it. So it can go, but the project that we discussed with argenx, in fact, we started building it in January, and the validation will still take place this month.
Okay.
So it can go fast as well.
It depends, and you'll come back later on this. Okay.
Yeah,
Bob.
and the fourth kind of project is where it's really about the outcomes. So then it's mainly about the clinical studies. So a clinical study itself takes a lot of time, is very expensive. So for some use cases, it might be interesting to just collect real-world data, or indeed have an idea on how a clinical study will look like based on real-world data. But can also be used for quality and regulatory purposes, like the MDR, the medical device regulation, to know, okay, what the intended use that I was giving is that, but maybe based on data, I can expand that to other indications. And once I have that proof, I can also use that to submit for reimbursement.
Okay.
And that's in fact a bit an overview of the different projects that we're running.
Okay, we got 4 different types of projects. Time to again to get to your smartphone, because we got some questions coming up to you. Not yet, Bob. This is still for you.
Yeah. So this is an overview on the different types of program that we do and what we aim to achieve. So it's all about engaging patients for optimal compliance, because we need the data also. So it's one cannot go without the other. So the engagement and the insights, but then indeed it should not take time of the healthcare team. So we need to automate as much as possible. And at the end, we measure and improve outcomes.
Okay. Ouais. Okay, let's see if we go. Now that's the moment to get your smartphone. We got one small question coming up. So normally, if you still are on your browser on which you answered the first questions, this should work. Otherwise, just take a screenshot of the QR code, and we have a question. We're going to talk about data. Charles Eric Winandi will talk within some minutes on data. Well, which data and insights are important for you? Which data or insights of a digital health tool should it provide, or which data, what should data learn you? We're waiting for your answers. Please answer with one word. We're trying to build a word cloud, and we're waiting for the first questions coming in.
It seems to be a very difficult question.
It seems to be a difficult question. There is also, outcomes. Outcomes is coming in. Predicted outcome. Outcome. So, Charles-Eric, we know what you'll have to talk about. Outcome, patient data, prognostic. That's you talked already about that. With,
predicted prognostic. It's the data not only having it after the process, but also during the process, so to use it for the optimal treatment of that specific patient.
Yeah, and that's why you developed that special tool.
The moveUP index, correct.
Yeah. Okay. Prompts, patient's experience outcomes. And I see Charles-Eric Winand saying, I'm going to talk about this. Well, Charles-Eric, let's talk, we'll listen to you, let's tell all about data. It's up to you.
Thank you. So I'll quickly introduce indeed what we can do with data. Data is a hot topic today, so it's often considered that it's the new oil, that it will transform the world as we know it, and how we can grow in the future. Data will be a big part of it, and if you look at the biggest companies today, they are all based on data. And the analogy between data and oil is quite interesting because it's a bit the same process with data. You need to extract it, you need to refine it, to adapt it, and then you need to put it to good use. Of course, if you don't have a usage, it's irrelevant to collect data. So how can you collect data? It can be in the digital health, of course. In the digital health sector, it can be with questionnaires, with videos, sensors, and so on. And then we show some possible use case of that collected data. So our application and our technology enables to collect patient-reported data, as well as which we call subjective data. These are questionnaires that they can fill in on the application, as well as more objective data, which can be coming from sensor, activity tracker, accelerometers, and so on, as well as video of movement. So all those parameters can be collected from the patient at their own place. So the goal is that those data are being collected in the home environment of the patient. Then they have to be put to good use. So for example, video of patient can be automatically assessed with AI and technology to enable range of motion. The range of motion per se is not maybe the most important, but the evolution of the range of motion and checking if the patient is making good progress is important. And then we'll see afterwards on how to use it. Depending on the evolution of the range of motion, you can adapt the exercise therapy of the patient to make sure that it's relevant. You can also have objective assessment, so we can gather via the sensor, for example, a 6-minute walking test of the patient. And what's also very relevant to healthcare provider is what we call the benchmarking. So how does that patient specifically compare with other patients? So you see here the blue little rounds are the specific patient, and then the green bars are their comparison with the overall population. So in a few seconds, when looking at those charts, you can see if that patient is an outlier or not, and how they are progressing in their trajectory. So all these benchmarking, evaluation, and reporting of data is a first interesting aspect. Then, of course, you need to use it, and if possible, without overload for the healthcare provider. We know healthcare providers don't have a lot of time, so where can we automate and make immediate good use of that data? And here you see a concrete example of exercise prediction, where a patient, based on all the parameters that they are reporting via the app, the platform makes recommendation on which exercise should be activated and which exercise should be deactivated for that specific day. And this enables the physical therapist who is following up the patient to make a very quick decision based on the suggestion of the model. So as Bob mentioned, we are a medical device, so which means we don't do this automatically. We provide recommendations so that the clinician, the physical therapist in this case, is more efficient. A last example that we can discuss is about prediction. The moveUP index that Bob talked about is one way of predicting outcome after surgery. We can do this on multiple parameters. So because we have collected a huge amount of data of orthopedic patients, but also bariatric patients and gradually in other indications as well, we can actually classify all those patients and try to find similar patients in the database, and based on that, make prediction on how they would evolve, what would work for them and what would not work for them in terms of intervention. Here you see an example of prediction of evolution of range of motion with direct feedback to the patient via a semi-automated message, which will give context on the evolution and what the patient can expect for the coming period. So those were some of the use cases of the data that we can generate via the platform. But of course, how can we valorize those projects and those data insights, and how can we make sure that they can generate additional value for the different stakeholders? And here there are very interesting analysis of McKinsey a few years ago on saying how medical device companies or pharma companies can actually leverage those new technologies to increase the added value of their solution. And you have different ways. You can either target the same user, for example, the surgeon, and make your product more efficient and to differentiate your product. So Bob gave that example of the thrombosis product, which is linked to an existing product, but which will help patients take the drug, monitor their symptoms, and make sure that we increase the efficiency and the adherence of patients to their treatment. You can also go broader and become a bit more product agnostic, which means you can go beyond your product, try to extend or create new value proposition beyond the simple use of your product. If you target surgeon, for example, you can offer the implant or certain instruments, but also the data insight, the reporting, and so on. And then you can go broader to different stakeholders and so on. What's very important is that, of course, every time new technologies are being implemented with pharma and medtech companies, you have a caveat that you might actually make the whole system more complex. How can you make sure that you don't increase the cost of sales, that you are not making your product more difficult to understand for the customer? That's a really important challenge. And that's where we can help actually in the validation phase to really define where we can generate the most value and what's the best use case for the different users. The goal is either to make the product more unique and really differentiated so that it increases in value, or to potentially generate new revenue stream for the new solution that has been developed, which can then be sold like a new product offering of the company. And so that's a bit theoretical part, but how does it translate concretely? Actually, everything we developed, our software as a medical device, so digital application, clinical recommendation tools, and so on, and they can actually be funded or generate revenue. What are the different sources of revenue? It can be licenses to care providers, hospitals who would pay for actually using the platform, engage their patients, and get the insight. It can be bundled in product offering, like we mentioned it before. And then, of course, you can obtain reimbursement. So if you can really prove the clinical added value or the organizational added value of your solution, you can obtain reimbursement. This is an area which is moving a lot in Belgium, but also in Europe and in the US, where you have new framework to reimburse digital therapeutics and digital health solution. So in Germany, for example, you have the DIGA, which is really specifically reimbursing digital therapeutics application with a specific budget just for the use of the application. In France, you have a new system which was launched a few months ago, which is also has as goal to enable the funding by the social security, the health insurance, the payer of digital solution. And in Belgium, you might have heard of the mHealth Belgium pyramid, which is also a framework of reimbursing mobile application at different level. The validation being the safety of the application, the interoperability, and then the clinical added value of the solution. And so all those frameworks are enabling a state or health payer reimbursement for the solution that has been developed, which can then be sold like other pharmaceutical or medical device product for the different users. And of course, we've gone through this process for multiple projects in different countries as well. So we can also help steer the value proposition to fit those reimbursement system because they vary country per country.
Yeah, but on what you're saying that there are already applications of moveUP labs that are reimbursed in Belgium.
So we have one application which is reimbursed today, which is the orthopedic case. Some of the other moveUP labs solutions have reimbursement as well, but there we've not done custom application. We rather went via existing code. So we developed something for which funding was already available to increase the access to market, because it can take sometimes many years to get a reimbursement like you would do it for pharmaceutical product. So there we can assess what are the reimbursement possibilities of existing codes and how can we develop something which can get funded from the start without the need to file for full reimbursement.
Yeah. We got a question coming in, and it's a short question, and it says, hospitals paying for using the platform, ? With other words, someone is doubting or thinks it won't be that simple that to engage hospitals to pay themselves for using the platform.
Actually, there needs to be incentive. So it's a very, very good question, but there needs to be incentive, and there are more and more incentive coming for efficiencies with hospital. So you have it with the fast discharge, moving some procedure to ambulatory surgery, having a solution, a digital patient engagement platform and so on, help to have patients better informed, faster, better prepared in and then faster out, which can generate savings for the hospital. You also have some procedures which move to bundle payment, where the whole procedure and all the medical acts within the hospital are paid with one amount. And if you can provide direct savings out of that budget, more efficiencies, it can also generate extra incentive and funding for the solution.
Yeah, I got questions are coming in for you, Charles-Éric. What about the privacy? You're dealing with data of patients, sensitive data. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's depending on what we want to do or what we want to use the data for. We'll have, of course, different data contracts. So you have different type of data contracts, data processing agreement or privacy policy. The baseline and the most important one is that the patient is the owner of his own or her own data, and they are able to decide if they want their data to be shared or not. So that's a very, very important point. So we always bring it back to the patient and they can decide what they can do with the data. Of course, the privacy is very important, and you have the GDPR for that you need to comply to. The security is also extremely important. You don't want medical data which are very sensitive to go out in the nature. So of course, in terms of IT security, we are also putting a lot of effort in ISO certification and so on to make sure that the data is kept in a very secure way.
Yeah. And the last question, you showed a small video of a patient filming. Is it the patient who's filming the range of motion? This means that a patient films himself or herself, send it on his app to a nurse, and they comment on that, or artificial intelligence works on this.
Yeah, I think one of the key features of moveUP, it's the fact that it's asynchronous between patient and healthcare provider. So we don't ask the patient to book specific appointment time in their agenda to discuss live with the healthcare practitioner. They can actually do video of their exercises or their range of motion when it suits, or when a relative is coming to visit them, they can say, okay, I need to send a video, please hold my phone and I will do my little exercise. And that actually help in the collection of data, because it can be done when the patient has the time to do it, and when someone is available potentially to help them. And then indeed, those videos are uploaded and are being pre-processed automatically by artificial intelligence techniques, so that the therapist who will look at the video have already an analysis. Again, depending on the type of element you want to assess, for example, the range of motion, you can have quite high reliability, and then you can automatically put the number. For some other assessment, like the performance of an exercise or the full gait, there you need to have a validation by a therapist who will review what the model has proposed.
Okay, if you still have questions, don't hesitate, send them to us, and you'll see we'll serve them immediately to Charles-Éric. But it's smartphone time. Once again, we have a small question for you. Scan your the QR code, and here we go. New question is launched. We're going to talk about collaborations, because apparently it's the major key to success. That's collaborating with your colleagues, collaborating with other companies. In your opinion, what is crucial for achieving optimal collaboration? So we're waiting for your answers. Tell us what you think about collaboration. All right, Bob, it's the key to success.
Exactly. So the collaboration, and also maybe I would add the implementation to it, to make sure that the whole process is a success.
Okay. What's, according to you, important?
And so I'm working with the different stakeholders on this. Yeah.
Yep.
Upfront alignment, making sure to have the right expectations, communication,
promoter, time allocation, digital efficiencies, being clear on shared goals, communication. Once again, well, a lot is coming up, and we see we have a very interactive public today. It's nice to hear. It's the end of the working day, but a lot of people are still watching this. Answers are coming in.
So we can skip the whole next 10 minutes on this. We have it already.
Here goes your slides. Last one, 5 seconds, and we close our polling. Task description we see coming up. So Bob, tell us all about it.
Yeah, so we identified a couple of elements which may seem logical, but at the end, if not being managed in the right way, it can cause delays or have a project shifted. So, as Jan was indicating in the beginning with his introduction, it is really solving a problem, solving a need, or even an unmet need. But that's important. That is, we sometimes get approached and say, you guys are creating nice digital tools. We also like to do some. Can we discuss what we can do? Yeah. Okay, fine. But let's first define which problem we are going to solve, or which opportunity we're going to address. That's important not only for a good kickstart and a good compliance of the whole stakeholder group, but making sure also in time it stays consistent. Because the moment you start building something and then you okay, maybe we'll do something for that problem. No, it needs to be well defined in the beginning what the problem is you want to solve. Yeah. And to do general checks on that part. Yeah. So that is the first one. One is defined. Also define what is success on that. So what should be reached by when, and that's not only a long-term planning. It is also splitting it in different milestones and different. So it's managing a project, in fact. But the project management of that is important, and define it, and then evaluate, okay, where we are now, what's the reason? This goes very well, this goes slower, what shall we do with it? So setting clear goals for success is important. Yeah. The third one is something that where Jan will comment on.
Well, let's try to get back to Switzerland. We see some slides changing. Jan of Argenix, you are there. Tell us all about collaboration, Jan.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what I wanted to mention is that, and Bob already started this discussion, is that the way we approach this, our work is by, making sure that, we essentially learn by doing, right? The aim was not to maybe spend too much time and energy and trying to design and develop the perfect solution from day one. But the idea was, let's identify the need, let's develop, a solution which solves this need, and let's actually, work together with the community of the patients and physicians to see, and pressure test, the solution which we develop, and see if that addresses the unmet need. And I think that's really the approach we took, and that's why you see the image of Coliseum here, and the hidden messages that the Rome was not built in one day, right? And that's really the approach which we took, and again we work together with the moveUP team on proceeding with this approach.
Yeah. Bob, he's talking about good collaboration, Argenix, the client, and moveUP. That's your project management that you talked about.
Indeed, and that was quite an interesting part. We were used to do full requirement analysis, but Jan challenges on that one and said, okay, no, we know more or less a part of the problem, so let's just start with that. Now, it was important to make sure that even for this easy solution that we have now developed in a few months' time, we also need to make sure that there is compliance. It's not because it's easy that we say, okay, let's just run it. It should also have its added value on itself. So also clear requirements need to be defined for that solution. But nevertheless, we succeeded in a few months' time for getting those requirements and building the solution and piloting it as we speak, correct?
Yeah. Okay, we got another example talking about collaboration. Also, Amgen have some experience on this. Let's listen to the testimonial of Koen Rijmakers of Amgen. Here he comes.
The key to success is that not only the patients will of course benefit from the solution, but it's also driven and supported by the entire team that is supporting these patients in the rehabilitation trajectory in the hospital. So the idea was initially brought to us by Professor Adriaanse, but then it was thoroughly discussed also with Professor Schots, the hematologist of UZ Brussels, and stem cell transplant coordinators were involved, and onco nurses. This, of course, is already a relatively time-consuming process, getting all these stakeholders together. But at that point, we decided also we want to make this solution, but not specific for UZ Brussels. Ideally, we want to be able to scale it up for, let's say, the entire of Belgium. So we organized advisory boards, again with hematologists, physiotherapists, onco nurses from different hospitals in Flanders and Wallonia. Which again, of course, took us some time to organize, but was very useful. We got a lot of useful feedback from those advisory boards that we were able to implement in the final solution with moveUP. And then after thorough validation, driven by mainly the master thesis students of the UZ Brussels, we were able to launch the final project end of December 2020. The timing it takes is also important when we look at the partnership that we have, because in a partnership, of course, Amgen invests time and money in the project, but we also expect the other partners to invest as well. And so the UZ Brussels definitely invested also with a lot of manpower and time into that. Now looking at the first results, we see that the patients find it relatively easy to implement it in their daily life, so they find it a useful tool. And the ones using it for a longer time also seem to have a beneficial effect on their rehabilitation as well. And then also from the part of the physiotherapists, it's helping them in more close follow-up of the patients throughout their rehabilitation project. So today the pilot is ongoing in the UZ Brussels, and a potential next step would of course be to see if we can scale it up, either within Belgium or even internationally. But since we are here in the field of multiple myeloma, but in a non-competitive environment, ideally we would also be looking at other companies to join moveUP and us in this project going further.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah, so indeed you see it's all about collaborating with the right stakeholders on this. And as Koen is indicating, once started, the consortium in which you collaborate can also be extended to other parties with specific interest in that field.
Okay.
And I think now it's time for validation, no?
Yeah, right. And when we talk about validation, we try to get back to Switzerland, I guess. We're going back to Switzerland, to Argenix, and there he is, Jan Aragagonov. Tell us all about it. You have some experience on this topic, Jan.
Yes, so as I just mentioned earlier, the way we approach, this work is that we have engaged, with the patients and and with the physicians, right, with the experts in the field of myasthenia gravis treatment, in order, to first of all, of course, to validate and confirm the unmet need which we have identified, the most importantly, right? And then also to design, let's call it, requirement phase, but essentially to design, the solution, right? And what we're doing now is actually we are continuing to work, with the expert and the patient community, and we are moving towards, validation phase, where again we would like to sort of pressure test, the solution which we have developed. And you see, if it works, if it really addresses the unmet need, or if it, needs to be improved. But again, the aim is really to learn by doing, and not spend, too much time at the concept and the stage of the requirements phase and designing something which most likely will be need to still be, fine-tuned and improved later on.
Yeah.
And that's really, where we are now, right? We are really, putting it in the hands of the patients and the physicians, and really getting, real life experience feedback in order to improve what we have developed, and also think about, potential next step, right? Thinking about more, maybe potentially more complex, more advanced solutions from the technology point of view, right? If you see that, that there is an unmet need, there is, remaining unmet need exists, which requires such solution. Again, we didn't really want to be in the situations that we have a hammer and then we are trying to look for a nail, right? We have something sophisticated from the technology point of view, very complex, but then, it's difficult to use, it's too complex, and it's really too much for the need which exists, right?
Yeah, Jan, you said at a certain moment you just have to do it. With other words, at a certain moment you have to decide, we jump and we swim.
Yeah, that's very much, the situation. Again, I think maybe a little bit unusual, or maybe not common situation is that, we clearly, identified the unmet need, and then we came up with this idea of, developing, such a digital solution, such an application, but not really the other way around, right? There was zero interest in actually developing an app, right? There was actually below zero interest, I would say, in developing an app, right? I think our preference maybe even would be to find another alternative solution, right? I don't know, maybe simpler solution, right? But I don't think that was the case in this particular situation, and that's really where clearly the solution meets the unmet need.
Okay, Bob, you have to do this from time to time. Just jump and we swim.
And indeed, the advantage is that it's a technology solution. So in fact, we can adapt it, of course, within. There are software updates, etc., and we need to respect the intended use and all the regulations around it. But in fact, we can update it quite easily. So indeed, jumping fast is important.
Yeah. Jan talked about integrating or participating with patients. We go to doctors. What is the importance of participation of healthcare professionals? Were you the driver? Were doctors, were surgeons the drivers? What's the importance of engaging your colleagues?
Well, we had a very specific situation. I think Bob remembered that we started off with a new funded project from the province of Antwerp, where we wanted to develop a new type of follow-up for the patients, and the moveUP application was part of it. So we had to deal with a lot of people, a lot of deal with the time as well, and it was full corona, so it wasn't very easy. But of course, as has been told already, you need to get all the people you want to involve. You need to have them very early in a very early stage in this new project. Otherwise, you will lose them during your project. So we have to deal with it very early. Take all the possible healthcare providers, whether it's a surgeon, whether it's a general practitioner or a physiotherapist, dietitian, etc. You need to have them on the team very early. And I must say, during those difficult days of Corona, I must say it was a great success. So I'm quite glad, but you need to get them very early on the team.
But you ask a lot of engagement of your team.
It is true, and I must say there's a lot of time already going to treat your patients during the day, because you have, obviously it's working during the day, so it's sometimes while you're taking a break or in the evening, and then you need, on the other hand, at the table, you need a very flexible team.
Yeah.
For your own team as well, needs to be flexible, but if you think about a paramedical team, you have to respect their life as well.
Yeah.
They all have kids they have to manage, so a very early stage we have to talk about how we're going to do it, what sort of time are we going to be able to spend, and we have to ask our hospital as well and our direction to say, well, do you agree we need to have some extra time to work on this project time, which is not always...
It started with you and your colleagues, and little by little you have to engage your nurses, the direction.
Yeah.
That's the way it went?
Yeah, that's the way it went. We first applicated, my colleague actually, Dr. Maarten Michiels, applicated for a funding from the governance, and when that was already done, we had to have our direction to say, yeah, we'll come across, because we do it as a team. And then we had to make a contract for that, and further on we had to involve all people and get them around the table. Obviously all people from moveUP, but nurses as well, dietitians as well, etc.
We're 4 years later. How is the reaction of your team? Still enthusiastic, or?
I must say, certainly it looks like, talking about it, that the dietitians do all the extra work, but they're actually very, very pleased about it, because while using chat functions, etc., there is another new way of talking to your patients. It's not the patient anymore. It's Sonia, Patricia. It's a very personal way, and people as well use the chat to communicate, not healthcare related, and say, I'm feeling fine. And the dietitian says, I'm glad to hear that. Keep on doing it. You're doing a good job. So it is more than just making sure things go right. It's a new form of communication, and together with a new website and Instagram and all other things, it becomes one big solution. Not really a solution, because it's a long-term thing, but it becomes more a true help for the patients on the long term.
Yeah, Bob, a new way of interacting with your patients. You hear that often?
Yeah, that's in fact, this is an example of a very intense project, both for the patient as well of the caregivers. Part of the requirements is also indeed, okay, now what problem are we solving, but which time, who is going to solve, who's going to work on it, and for many of the programs, there are no HCPs involved, no doctors, no nurses. It's an automatic program. Of course, then the compliance is lower, so it's always finding the right balance. Who wants to spend energy into the process, and what do we want to get out of it?
Yeah. We said we'll keep it all within 90 minutes. We still have 10 minutes. Well, let's start with our last chapter, asking some collaborators how it's working with moveUP. And Doctor, it's up to you. How was it working with honest between you and me?
Horrible. No, that's not true. As I said, it was not easy because of...
Which way?
Because of Corona, for instance. We had to do a lot of things online, which is sometimes a bit awkward, certainly if you don't know each other very well. But what was what specifically was very nice is that on the other side of the computer, it doesn't really felt like there were two teams. Mm-hmm. It felt like eventually, because you talk a lot, so you start talking on a very first name basis. Eventually, it's one team, and that is quite important because it's something that evolves very frequently, and you need to be able to talk and say, well done, but it's not what we want, or we see it differently. Mm-hmm. And then you get from moveUP, well, that's possible, that's not possible, obviously. And together, you have a result that is good. So we're actually quite pleased, and we are still, because obviously there's more project coming on for other things. But certainly now Corona is gone. It's much more easy to talk and to. So it's we're happy.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's listen to Switzerland. It seems like. Eurosong. Let's go to Switzerland and see how they react, what their points for moveUP will be. Jan, are you still there?
Yes, of course.
Your points, please.
Well, I can only echo, what just was said. I think the experience was very positive. In practical terms, I can share just a couple of examples. Is that I feel that, the moveUP team is sometimes, I forget that this is, a moveUP team and it's not Argenix team, so, and then, in some cases, my colleagues would, refer to moveUP as vendor, the colleagues who don't work with them directly, and I would always correct them. This is not a vendor, colleagues. This is not a typical, customer service provider relationship, right? It's our partner. We are co-developing, something which is, didn't exist. It's, it's pretty advanced, technology solution which solves clear unmet needs. So, it's not one time, sort of hit and go project delivered by a service provider, but it's a real true partnership and co-development process which we are in.
Okay, partnership, it's working on long term, I hear you say. Let's go to Amgen. They had also a project running. Let's see how Koen reacts on the question, how was it collaborating with moveUP? Here is his answer.
So from the start, when we were discussing potential solutions, for us it was clear that we could not develop this within our company alone. So we needed a collaboration with a MedTech company, moveUP in this case, a collaboration which is going on now for I think over 3 years, with a very intense trajectory. It was also the first time that we had this kind of partnership, so already in the contracting part there were a lot of specificities that we needed to look into. But then, we ended up with a very fruitful collaboration where moveUP had the technical expertise in the development of the application and the potential steps in this rehabilitation projects. Also, before stem cell transplant already in education of the patients. And we could bring our expertise in the field of hematology and bring all the necessary specialists together. An intense trajectory which is still ongoing. Since the pilot is ongoing, there are still bi-weekly meetings which are led by moveUP, where the status of the current ongoing patients is being looked at by their specialists and by the specialist of UZ Brussels, and where we look to see if we need to make some modifications in the current application. So to conclude, we are really happy with the collaboration and still convinced that this is the perfect way to collaborate for these kind of projects where you need both the technical expertise and then also the expertise in specific therapeutic areas.
Yep. Charles-Éric, Bob, we hear from your three partners. You're not the classic third party. You're a partner, is a very close and sometimes a little bit unusual collaboration. Is that right?
But for this type of project, it is important. It also our partners, they're experts in the therapies that they provide, whether it is a company, whether it is an healthcare practitioner. but they're not used to doing this type of projects. So we need to collaborate very much, and with every project we also need to learn and to integrate. And of course, with every project that we do, we learn to do the next one better. That's the interesting part of it.
Yeah, Charlie,
Yeah, I think what Bob mentioned is the complementarity of expertise, which is good and which makes it a fruitful collaboration where both parties can learn and grow and improve the product on the long run.
Yeah. And I'm looking at some questions. I'm looking at the clock. We still got 4 minutes. But the question is coming in, and it's a little bit on what you're discussing. The question is, should the app be hosted by moveUP, or is it Gerhard Mol, who is the owner, the host? How do you deal?
But in fact, both solutions are possible. Mm-hmm. But in fact, we feel that at the end, or we see that at the end of the process, mainly we are the one that is hosting it, and are responsible also for all the data-related elements. Otherwise, we need to include all the care teams in this. So we at the end, we mainly do it ourselves. Now, this does not mean that everything needs to be in the look and feel of moveUP. Yeah. We can also customize this to make sure that it reflects the look and feel of the hospital or the company, to make sure that it feels their environment.
Well, we'll check this in Mol. Your app, is it Heilig Hart app or moveUP app?
But when we started off, because it was a new thing, we developed videos and content related for the patient, and within that content, it's our hospital and our team that is in the front picture, which is for us the most important part, because you want to have collaboration with the patient from the beginning until the end. But if there's a problem specifically with the application itself, we're glad that there is a team behind that application that can provide us with solutions, then that's not something we can provide, I think.
Let me rephrase it. Your patients, do they see it Mol, Heilig Hart app?
Yes, they do see, but the colors, as Bob already mentioned, are changeable, but obviously it needs to be something that is applicable for many teams.
Yeah, but I guess for your patients it's important. It's my hospital, it's my doctor, it's my diet.
It's true. And when you have reports for patients, etc., it's all related to the hospital and the team you have. So that's
okay,
personalized.
Cool. For the last time, smartphone time. Still, we give you the opportunity to get your QR code, and only 2 questions we like to ask. You just said, doctor, that your patients say, "I feel fine." Well, how do you feel? How do you feel? Just an answer. Send it to us. Let me tell you that moveUP is thinking about maybe having new webinars on this topic. So if you are interested, that's the next question that are coming up. If you have a topic that you would like to be discussed, well, let's send it to us. There are some funny answers coming in. You feel inspired, hot. Believe me, it's also hot in here. Moved up, nice. We got some creative listeners. Get ready to move up, inspired. A lot of answers coming in. That's nice to see. By the way, if you still have questions, you still can go right down below on the screen. There is no time to answer it right now, but without any doubt, someone of moveUP will answer your question. A lot of the main, if we have a word cloud, the main word is we feel inspired. I guess you can live with that.
Very much. That was the goal. So
we like your smile, Bob. Yeah. Very last question. I already introduced it. If there is a next webinar, which new topics would you like to see discussed? Are there more topics that you would like to see in depth and discussed in depth? So give us your answer. So time is up. We'll take some seconds for waiting for your answer. We see there is some delay in time, so we're waiting. Send us your topics that you would like to see discussed. This is an idea of you, Bob, for if possible, repeat this and go more in depth with webinars?
Yeah, the goal is to share experiences, and it's easier this way, indeed, for having the speakers involved, because otherwise we need to bring the story also every time, and it's just our story, but it's more important that other people share their experience. So definitely on specific topics, we can definitely redo this.
Yep.
And also this webinar can also be recorded, is now being recorded, can also be looked at afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. Secondary use of data, and indeed I guess this is Charles-Éric says yes. I'll discuss this. User stories. We had 4, 5 user stories. I hope you have more user stories.
More user stories.
So this can be arranged. So still some seconds, and we close this webinar. We get still a question coming in that will be answered. So if your question is coming in over here, without any doubt, someone of moveUP will answer this. So let's close up this webinar. Let's thank everyone here being here. The experiences that you shared were very fruitful. Of course, thank you, Jan of Argenix in Switzerland. We know that you didn't have much time, but we like so much that you were present here. So maybe see you next time. Of course, we want to thank also IQVIA who supported this event, but mostly of all, we want to thank you for being here, joining us, giving a lot of interactions, sending us your questions. So I want to say goodbye and maybe till the next time.